City of Lawrence Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting is now called to order. It is now 5:30 p.m. on October 3rd, 2022. Our first agenda item is proposal number 17, 2022, amending Title I, Article 2, Chapter 2, Section 4 of the Municipal Code of the City of...
Can you shut that?
The City of Lawrence redistricting Common Council district boundaries pursuant to Indiana Code 36-4-6-3.
Where's your big?
Okay, I'm going to open proposal number 17, 2022, up for discussion. Just I want to make a couple of comments. This item has been on our agenda for nearly 3 months now. We had a presentation early July with the attorney that was hired to do the map on behalf of the council. That map was presented. We have had a town hall meeting. We have had, this will be the third committee as a whole meeting on this matter. So I think that this will be hopefully our final discussion before we move this forward for vote. So if you have any comments to make that are substantive in nature regarding redistricting, let's talk about it. So I want to open it up to the council for comment. Okay, seeing no comment, we're moving forward to proposal number 23, 2022, fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the City of Lawrence, Indiana for the year 2023.
Madam President, do you want to vote in committee of the whole on the amended map with the street boundaries, or do you want to address that in?
Let's address that in full council.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. Proposal number 23, 2022. I'm going to open that up for discussion. I know that that was probably discussed in some part in the Finance Committee meeting.
Madam Chair, we're on proposal number 23, correct?
Correct.
Madam Chair, yes, that was just discussed in the most recent finance meeting that happened earlier this evening. Several interesting pieces and some ideas that we discussed regarding the salaries as a whole was that we have now made it through COVID. We've made it to this point, and beginning in 2021, 2022, we made a point of trying to make sure we were guarded with the city budget and addressing the needs of the salaries and of the budget itself. So with that, all three of the salary budgets were recommended to not be recommended out of council. So number 23 was not recommended at the level of 5%, with the intent that we would amend the other two remaining salary ordinances to include an 8%. Portions in order to offset that, the 5% again, as was recommended or was proposed by Tyler, and part of his presentation he made was 5% would come from the general budget and 3% would come from our ARP funds to continue to help with covering the cost of our employees receiving the 8% raise in total. Would be that our elected officials not receive a raise in 2023. So it was not recommended out of finance. Proposal number 23 as it stood was not recommended out of finance. And my intent is to make an amendment for no raises for elected officials this year.
So
I'm ahead by one, I apologize. the elected officials is number 24. So for number 23, fixing the salaries of appointed officials, employees of the City of Lawrence, the intended recommendation is to make a recommendation for 8% raise for our appointed officers and employees of the City of Lawrence.
So, real quick, though, you mentioned that in lieu of 24, which I agree with, that we were going to do the extra percentage for the officers and employees, but you're stating that as if those two are equal, and they're not. So
I don't understand.
So
your
the
question.
increase that was proposed, 5% increase for elected officials, is nowhere near the 3% increase for
Correct.
number 23.
If we
So
go,
they're not interchangeable.
they are not. And so the comment is that it would help to offset revenue loss. So if we go back to Tyler's projection, at the end of 2024, the net revenue would be off by $7,550. And that number is definitely within the revenue of us, of the elected officials not receiving a raise, what that would be.
Go ahead.
So
Counselor, did you explain that the 3% is from the ARP and 5% is from the general fund?
correct.
And then what is left is the 77,000,
Correct.
which is equivalent to not giving elected officials.
Yeah, but the 3% ARP fund, I need to understand for me how the salaries are sustainable. ARP is temporary. So how are we going to cover those salaries long-term when ARP goes away?
Well, part of covering those salaries long-term is an assumption and a very strong assertion that in 2024 and 2025, the rates will be in line with the contract, the union contract of 3%. So the 8% this year is really a catch-up from last year. There was a 0% raise last year, even though there was a bonus.
So there's no catch-up. So let's not talk about catch-up because we did do bonuses. So let's just talk about it, as it exists today, right? So when ARP goes away, which is what, 2025?
I think we have to pay it out through we have as long as 2026, I believe. Our plan is to spend it all by 2025, I think, correct?
Is that right, Controller? Our plan is to have it spent by 25. Okay. Go ahead, Counselor.
I think that why I support this plan and would answer the sustainability question for me is ultimately we're really only approving the 8%. The 3%, 24, 25 is up to a different council to make that last decision. But we're looking at it that if we do this, they should reasonably be able to do that, the 3, given the information that we have today. So 3% raises traditionally, let me not say that. I don't want to say that. We can't make any assumptions. Right? So all we can vote on is can we afford the 8 today? We're not setting up, and we're not tying a future council in our belief.
Well, can we afford 8% today
Yes.
and 8% next year?
No.
No, I'm not saying it's going to be 8%. I'm simply saying we're covering the cost, the increase by ARP
This year.
this year.
This year,
So where are we going to cover it?
Next year we only got to give 3.
Oh, but it's the same money.
the sustainability is in the controller.
You see what I'm saying? It's the same money,
You see, 'cause the budget doesn't go, you tell me if the revenues don't go up. But we have the projections too from the data that we received that went with that our revenues are going to go up. We're up 18%.
No. Oh, no. You're getting confused.
Okay.
That's the property tax, and we have a property tax cap of 5%. There's a delta between the 5% and the 18%.
So 1 year
We can't, that's not for salaries. That's for capital improvement.
If we have the ARP now, we have to spend it. We have the five, we can afford the 5%, we have the bonus, let's call ARP the extra money. I see what you're saying. The next year, once the ARP goes away, can our regular budget sustain that number?
That number, and potentially, we need to plan for a minimum, right? If we're of 3%, we need to try to do that, right?
His projections on here, Tyler's projections shows outlays those future years and keeps us still at the 20% reserve at the 3. And if we had to, with a 20% reserve, let's say worst case scenario, we got some money to go get a little bit if we had to make it work.
And if we look at it in dollar amount, it's not too dissimilar than what we just approved potentially for next level trails.
No.
More than the
No.
roof.
When I talk about sustainability of salaries, I'm not talking about trails or other projects that we're doing. I'm talking about, can we sustain?
I think yes. I would say
Yeah,
yes.
but I don't want to think. I want you to be able to tell me.
Definitively say yes, based on Tyler's and all the data we've been giving.
Controller, can you come forward? Because we're not taking a vote, so I don't need your voting position. I'm trying to understand how we can sustain this salary increase that's being proposed
Okay, so,
without going into ARP. Let's take ARP off the table.
oh, you want to take
Yeah,
it off the table?
yeah.
Well, that's different.
The following
No.
year.
Are you talking about in 24?
Yes.
Yes.
So does everyone have just a copy of scenario 5 with them?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope.
So, let me grab.
Do you have another one?
I'm convinced. No, these are the other scenarios.
All right.
So laid out here in these scenarios, and we can go through multiple. We don't have to focus on just this one. But with this one, it shows 8% in 23. Obviously, the 23 general fund budget is the same as what's proposed because the 3% in this scenario would be covered in ARP if that was the case. So what I've done in 24 is taken that 3% from ARP, put it back into the budget, but also assumed 3%, just a baseline assumption. Did that again in 25. One of the notes I put on here is just a projected inflationary factor of 3% for the other categories. So you can see in 24, you do have the negative. You do start to use cash reserves of $7,500 in 24, and it gets a little bit bigger in 2025 with about 82,000. So would use some cash reserves to try to stand. And I try to be as realistic as possible with these projections. So you're tight, but it's again what you'd like to do, and then moving forward. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
When you're tight around keeping the 20%.
No, he's talking about the
24,
salary.
you still have 6.2 million is kind of the projected ending balance. So you're still maintaining your 20 reserve. 20%.
That's what I'm saying, right.
You're tight in the sense that you're not perfectly balanced.
Right.
Thank you. What other discussion?
Madam President, if I may, I was wondering, I was watching the Finance Committee and I understood the calculations that were brought forward in your discussion, and it does make a lot of sense in terms of the 5% within the budget and the additional 3% that's coming from ARP. But my question is, because I also have the same concerns about sustainability over the next 2-3 years, given inflation and other issues that we do not have full grasp of. No one does right now. So I do have the same concerns you raise, but I was wondering, what if we could do a 3% as a bonus? The ARP funds, even though I know there's an accounting issue with that. I understand that piece. But could that become how we can get to an 8% raise for this year, for 2023, and then address it differently in 2024, 2025? And could that be more sustainable long run, and we could reassess at those times?
Madam Chair, and Tyler, please correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but what you just described in using ARP funds, on a going forward basis is not currently what is in our plan for those years. Is that correct? Because what I'm concerned about is I just want to make sure the council understands that if you commit ARP funds for these purposes, and that's different than what is in our plan, then the funding that we have stated will be used in those years for stormwater, which is 1.1 million in 2024, and budget revenue replacement, which is 1.4 million in 2024, which is to hire up to 6 crime prevention officers, may not happen at all.
Right. So what I would say is in the 2023 plan, I have it with me actually, you already have in the plan 5% salary adjustments. So you would need to, depending on the decisions made today or in the next few weeks, you would need to amend that plan. If you wanted to do 3%, you could amend it down, change that from a salary adjustment to a bonus. If you went with a 5, then you could take the 5% out of ARP and allocate it towards capital. You've got more options, but as the plan stands now, there's 5% salary adjustments in 23. That's one of the reasons why I put in the budget 5% was to, originally the plan was to go and allocate that towards capital.
So in layman term, 5% is in our general fund line item as a 5% raise, right? Is that what you're saying? It's in our budget now stating that it's a 5%.
So in the civil city budget that's proposed, yes, we put it together the 5%. What I was mentioning is that in the ARP plan, the last amended version I went through had 5% salary adjustments in there for 23. 22 had the 5% bonus. I have a copy of it if you want me to bring it up here.
So we've written 5% in ARP already. So by using 3%, it's actually using less of what's allocated in ARP for the salaries.
And maybe that's where I'm confused, because the plan was to use 5% of ARP funds for 2023. So when you say 5% is coming from general fund, I thought that meant that the plan was for the ARP funds to be placed in the general fund to make that bonus payment. And you're saying, no, these are separate, you didn't do that. And there's still 5% of ARP funds available.
In
Or 5% bonus ARP funds.
2022, there was 5% bonus, and we did pay that out of the ARP funds. And so that's where we amended the second time to take what was left, and allocate that towards the trails. So what I'm saying is in the 2023 plan, there's 5% salary adjustments that was put in there. So what we didn't have that in our proposed plan. In the budget, I went with 5% raises. The original intent was then to come amend the plan to take the 5% in ARP.
When did we amend it?
Well,
It was amended, in committee when it was proposed.
so if I may be looking at the wrong version, but I see a 2023 ARP plan of a 5% salary adjustment for city employees of $968,000 roughly.
Right.
Is the 5% increase for salaries that you've proposed in the budget ARP money?
No, it's
No.
in the budget, yeah. So we budgeted in the budget that, in our civil city budget here, 5% raises. It's in the budget. It's funded in the budget. So I'm saying additionally, there's a 5% that's still left in the ARP plan. So we would need to amend. One of the reasons for that is just that technically the Fed had said you're not supposed to transfer ARP funds to another fund, so you would have to pay it directly out of there. The bonus wasn't a problem, but if you were doing the raises, it could get a little more tricky.
So back to Maria's question, which was 24 and 25.
Did you mention the bonus instead?
Yes, so for 2023, 5% raise within the budget that's been accounted for as you presented, and then the additional 3%, which would not be ongoing, it would come from the ARP funds, it has already been, I don't know.
So I would say, you have
Expected.
money allocated in the 23 plan of 5% salary adjustment, which is just different wording from 5% bonuses. So if you are suggesting, could you do a 3% bonus out of ARP? Technically, yes, you're allowed to do that. We've done the 5 this year, so.
And that way, that salary increase
It's only 5%.
is really only 5% for 2023. Then we go to 2024, and as Counselor has mentioned, it seems that that pot of money, that ARP fund, was, as we understood it, to be used for other things rather than salary, and we can reevaluate in 2024, 2025 on just how we want to allocate different funding based upon what the salary needs are, what our other needs are, what our, capacities are for other things at that time, rather than using it as a salary. Bonuses are different than salary increases over time, right?
Yes, I mean, correct. A bonus is a one-time thing versus a salary is recurring. So yes, that's a good way of putting it. You have, I mean, there are a lot of, I mean, you have a lot of options is where you're kind of coming down to at this point. You could do 5% raises, 3% bonus, 3% raise. I mean, there's options on the table. This is kind of where you'll have to come to a decision, because you could talk again about 5% bonus out of ARP. There's a lot of options.
Anything that we do over 5% that we can cover in the budget and still have a balanced budget is more than what was proposed. Our original budget was for a 5% increase.
Yes, right. The introduced budget was 5% raises.
Madam President,
Balanced, yep.
can I make a statement really quick? Thank you so much for answering some of these questions. I want to first off make note, I am not against 5% at all. The reason why I want to support the 8% is having been a part of the Public Safety Committee and just listening and speaking with representatives from the departments and things, I know a topic of conversation that has come up several times is the matter of diversifying, attracting more to minorities, and making sure that we're bringing in more people into our departments. I know, with an 8%, that is something that I know, how do I say this right? With a raise, that will help, and I want to watch how I say this, but bridge the gap to make us more competitive with other markets that are equivalent to our size of a city. Because that is something that we are having, is we are losing people on the departments due to pay. That is a continual problem. So by making it, where I think the suggestion is great, and anything to help is always beneficial, and nobody will ever turn that down, I just think that that's a topic of conversation that has come up several times when we've been in committee meetings and talking about different ways we can diversify and attract more minorities into the departments. Is they've brought that up, is we need to have more competitive pay. So the way I see it, we take, if we go with this and we take the risk and we say, yes, okay, fine, we're gonna go for the 8%, make this competitive, and then have numbers to look at next year. Did numbers grow? Did something happen? And if it's so, great, then we can keep moving forward. If not, then we can continue to try to move forward to help attract more minorities, more, and diversify our city even more, because that is a very important issue that I know is important to me. Having grown up in this city, I understand. I mean, I grew up at 46 in Mithofer. I mean, I totally understand. Like, this is a very important issue. And so that's why when this was presented and I saw this 8%, that is a reason why I am supporting this. And I just wanted to make that clear for the record. So thank you.
Thank you for your position. Any other discussion? Okay, I think we'll have continued conversation. This council, I can say, has always done the right thing. But these types of decisions that we're making in the financial climate that we're in right now, we have to look at everything on the whole. And that's really our job, is not to just decide what's best for everybody right now, but what's going to be best for this city long term. So thank you. Did any other counselors have anything before we move to the next item? Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it.
One question, Madam Chair. My intent is to propose an amendment to what's proposed. Would it be appropriate to do that tonight or later on?
Later on? Later on? Next, we have proposal number 24, 2022, establishing compensation for elected officials for the year
I believe I'd like to go ahead and propose an amendment to...
Make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjust for proposal number 23, fixing salaries of quoted officers and employees the city of Lawrence, so that instead of a 5% raise, it reflects an 8% raise.
All in favor by show of hands? Oh, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Counselor Russell. All in favor by show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. All opposed? 4. That's 5-4. Next, we have proposal number 24, 2022, establishing compensation for elected officials for the year 2023. And I think this has already been discussed. I was going to make the motion anyway that, well, I'm not going to make a motion. I'll just say on the record that I'm not in support of pay raises for elected officials for the year 2023. Is there any discussion?
Madam, can you tell me whether or not the proposal has a increase? Because I didn't think it did.
It does.
It does? Okay, then I have,
5%.
okay. So we'd need to amend that to 0.
Yep.
Is that what, oh, you're not
Yep.
proposing?
But I wanted to make sure that
I'll
if
make a
anybody else,
proposal that we amend that to 0.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor Wells?
I initially sponsored this. Of course, this was, a lot of things have changed, and of course, the salaries for the city employees are definitely, in my opinion, take top order, so I don't know if I just simply withdraw it.
No,
vote
you don't need to, because we do have to vote on it. We just make it 0, so thank you. Thank you for your offer to do that. Any other discussion? Seeing none?
I do. Yep. Does this include,
Any elected official? That would be mayor, all of us who are on a ballot.
okay, got it, just want to make sure.
Yep. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor by show of hands? Motion carries unanimous. Next, we have proposal number 25, 2022, fixing salaries of appointed officers, employees of the police and fire department for the year 2023.
Madam Chair, this proposal was also heard before the Finance Committee tonight, and our intent is also to request that this be amended to include an 8% raise. And just one note, it was also in line with both of the union contracts for fire and police. So last year, I know we had to go back and do some editing because there were a few errors, but this proposal has taken all of that into account already.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Last year, I remember there was a few typos where we had to go back in and re-amend because of typos. So all of that was looked at this year, and we're in line with the contract.
Okay. Any discussion on proposal number 25, 2022?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend proposal number 25 so that we include adjusting from a 5% raise to an 8% raise for the salaries of our police department and fire department.
I'll second.
Motion second, any discussion? So I'm going to vote, and I'm going to vote not in support of this until I have more information about the sustainability of salaries. I have always supported increases for our public safety and for our city workers, and I will continue to do that in a responsible way. So I just wanted to state that on the record. Any other discussion? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor by show of hands? Okay. All opposed? Okay, that fails. Next, we have proposal number 26, 2022, for appropriations and tax rates for the 2023 budget. Do you have an update on that, Counselor Denny? Counselor Denny, do you have an update on proposal number 26, 2022?
Madam Chair, for proposal number 26 for appropriations and tax rates of the 2023 budget, we had numerous workshops with that and ironed out ahead of time with the controller and other folks, multiple pieces. We met with the department heads to work on that. And so the appropriation, the proposal that's presented is a solid proposal, and it was recommended out of finance as it is.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
let's finish proposal number 26, 2022, and then I'll call a brief recess and we can discuss any concerns that you have, okay?
okay.
All right. Proposal number 26, 2022 is open for discussion. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All in favor by show of hands. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, I'm going to call for a
Recess.
2-minute recess, and then we're going to finish up, well, matter of fact, yeah, 2-minute recess.
Okay.